Hello, everyone, and welcome to African Conservation Podcast. Today with us is Dulla FARDY from Tanzania, who is a wildlife photographer and filmmaker, and also has a wildlife tourism and conservation media company. Hello, Dulla. How are you today?
Hi, Matt. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been wonderful having to join you here because I think we've tried catching up. Was it from January or no, February?
Yeah.
And it just didn't work with schedules and all our traveling plans and everything. But finally, we're here. We get to meet,
Yeah, I'm very
which is
happy to talk to you today.
mhm.
If you could introduce yourself briefly and explain to our listeners, your past and how you become what you're doing today.
Yeah. So to begin with, I've been in the industry for the past 14 years now, and it all started with guiding. But of course, I was lucky to go through formal conservation education from one of the well-known education institute in East Africa and Southern Africa called Mweka.
Yeah.
And of course, the mission was well, my dream to begin with was wanting to be a guide. And I thought being in that position, the broader part would be engaging on a much more broader conservation education, which gives you a bigger understanding on the elements of protecting our areas and how people and wildlife are being involved. And then, of course, you come on the other side, you get a job, and then you start hosting guests and you have a broader knowledge. So that's how it all started.
So you were saying at first you were a guide. Did you grow up like in the tourism industry or did you grow up in the countryside? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in much more on the edges of Arusha town. So I wasn't that privileged to stay in much more in the countryside. But yeah, we still had access. I mean, like with our country, the way it is, if you're traveling from one region to other region, you are probably driving across a couple of these national parks.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so that's the area I grew up, and how I got connected to this was it's something that like when it comes to love of animals, it's something that you just happen to like it at those early stages, and you don't really understand where is it taking you. I remember on those years where now we would keep pets at home, we would always have you name it, either rabbits or dogs, or you have birds around and stuff like that, but you still don't understand what does this really mean in the real world when now you're an adult and wanting to still be part of this. And then as you grow up, you realize, oh, there's things like there's the tourism industry. Then, oh, again, there's the conservation side of things, there's the national parks, and there's still lots of job opportunities around that space. And yeah, so to begin with, I started liking those stuff. I didn't know what was the direction until eventually ended up being a guide at my early stages.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
conservation is linked with tourism a lot. And when you studied conservation, what made you choose this path, of on conservation photography and filmography? What attracted you to this?
So at first, uh, as I'd mentioned, even growing up in those early years, I had the opportunity to be part of this. We had access to some media platforms. You have a TV at home, watch channels and all that. And then again, as I said, as I grew up and then having to get involved into the guiding, which I thought was quite cool because of also me wanting to talk more about the animals, like just the way I did with my friends when we grew up and telling them about my pets around and how I take care of them and giving them names and all that around. And then at some point, uh, uh, through my path of guiding career and having to be part of different guiding elements, as in from walking safari guides to the normal game drivers driving guests around, boat safari guide. Those are all they're all around guiding, but they kind of specialized. Like you become a guide, but you have to be able to handle rifles. You have to know your way across the bush. Then that's a specialized kind of guiding. Then when it comes to boat safari, the same thing. You have to be able to ride those motors across rivers and lakes. All those kinds were specialized guiding. And then at some point, I thought, well, having to explore these elements of guiding, and then I realized there was a niche that wasn't much exercised by the locals, and that was photographic guiding. And at that point, I saw that was an empty cup, and I thought it was quite exciting. And also my interest from early ages into being attracted into wildlife and conservation through media platforms, I came and realized maybe I should also expand my skills into also getting involved into photography. And you see, the thing is, even when we still had, while most of the companies were still trying to empower the locals in getting involved into these different departments, when it came to wildlife and photography, we still got our neighbors and foreigners coming across the world, coming in, exercising those kind of job opportunities, which I thought, well, not much locals are involved with this. So I took that path as an empty cup and exercised it. And I've been doing it for so long, and I'm so engaged into it because of the creativity element inside it. And yeah, so that's how I got involved into media stuff and conservation.
Nice. Like regarding, like you said, having more locals, Tanzanians or Kenyans doing wildlife photography, conservation photography, it's something it's like you said, it was not like this in the past, but slowly it's moving forward in the right direction. It's
Yes.
it's the whole point to have local guides maybe before or local individuals using media platforms to share what's happening in Africa, for conservation, wildlife, let's say even over tourism sometimes, or human wildlife conflict. Any
Yes.
particular challenges in your work, or was it pretty easy from the beginning, or I guess not, huh?
Well, it's not easy, and it's still not easy as at the moment because there's an element of first of all is having the gears around that area. They come with cost. It's not a thing. It's in our areas as much as the locals wanting to get involved into this way of playing part into conservation and the tourism at large, but also getting the right access to the gears. They still come with enormous cost.
Yeah.
So it starts from there. So there's a challenge, and of course, even if you have them, for most of them also they're lacking accessibility because most of these places they're quite remote, they're quite far from where people grow from, and they also come with the element of technology where you also have to keep up with the knowledge of having to be able to operate them even if you get a chance. So those kind of portfolios and all that complexity of can do you have the gear to begin with? That's one thing. And
Yeah.
if you have it, can you access the places? Can you reach those places? And then when you go to those places, what kind of story are you trying to tell? And all those supportive elements, either be the actual platforms, either you name them like festivals and organizations and associations like the one I think we also talked about this earlier, Tawima, being able to recruit all these people and recognize them and finding a way to get all of them involved and giving them access to these places. Not to forget the bylaws that are guiding the media industry in Tanzania. So those are all challenges that we get specific, like me personally, that I still see we have to kind of have to overcome them to really, really allow the locals to play part into this and be able to tell their own stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you mentioned Tawima. Tawima, is it a government or is it a private association?
The Women is a private association. It was founded in 2017,
Okay.
and by that time, it was just an idea of what we wanted to do before even giving it a name. But the idea is when we started discovering ourselves within our communities, who's doing photography, who's doing filming, who's good in writing, who's good in voiceovers and things like that. So we started creating this idea of like we should find a way to all come together, identify these individuals, and see if we could make our own local association, just like the broader ones you'd hear. There'd be Natural Discovery, National Geographics, and stuff like that. So we thought of something that could also engineer or grow within our own society that
Yeah.
could support and also allow big associations to collaborate with or individual media companies that are wanting to explore our destinations to use us as a database in being able to engage into media stuff and are recruiting people that they could also be part of their projects into this kind of filmmaking and photography and all that. So that's how it started. So it's a private one. We're still evolving. We're still finding ways to also identify more people and even expand beyond just the camera, beyond just the writing areas. There could be people who are good in writing scripts. There could be people who are good in certain kind of art, but it has to also be connected with media elements
Yeah, of
on
course.
how we're trying to depict the message. Yes.
Is Dawima providing training? Because, like you said, having photographic gear is very expensive, is technologic, so you need to know how to use it. You need to stay up the game, with everything that's new that's coming out. And of course,
Mhm.
the finance element, it's a lot of money to buy big lenses and nice camera. So
Yeah.
how does, let's say, a growing up young wildlife photographer in Tanzania find ways to evolve, and have enough gear to be able to go, like you said, to those remote places, take amazing pictures and sell them. Is there any help coming from Tawima or any maybe sponsors, lodges or camps? Do they help also?
Yes, so at the moment we get those kind of supportive elements. To begin with the lodges and camps that would own those kind of properties on those destinations. And number one, so far it's been a company called Noma Tanzania, and they've been the supportive element so far, the biggest supportive element from day one, on buying our idea. And because they have camps across our national parks, and most of them being located in very remote areas, so they've given us access to their properties. And this is all scheduled annually, where now we would come up with a timetable, we'll pull up a proposal, give it to them, and then they would say, okay, fine, we have so and so camp, which might not have lots of guests at that particular time, so you guys can access that. And they'll pretty much fund most of everything from our stay, accommodations, food. We use their staff. They host us, they help us behind as we're doing those training programs. But not only that, we also in relation with Tanzanian National Park Authority,
Oh,
which we also get them involved. And being able to access these places, you need special permits, you need filming permits if you're going for a proper filming. You need, let's say, you're gonna be wanting to use a drone. You need all those kind of permits to allow the logistics to move forward. So they'll always give us access as long as we notify them on what we're going to do. And then but behind it, as the association, we make it a public announcement, and then we go through the listing. We see who's really keen, who could we really help, and then we recruit them, and then we send them. It could be a 7 days, 10 days program, depending on, especially on the accommodation side, how many days can they offer us?
yeah.
And yeah, so we go there. In most cases, we don't have, as an association, we don't have the supportive gears, but of course, whoever is coming in would always recommend they use their gears because that is what belongs to them,
Yeah.
rather than giving them something which you have to start teaching them how to use it. So we pretty much want them to use what they already have, and then they'll go in with a mentor, and then they'll get the training. So it can either be specifically with wildlife, or could be something to do with lifestyle across the camps and lodges, because all those elements, they have job opportunities. Like the one we did recently was more focused on women and giving them a chance to do interior photography, which with this evolving tourism, lodges and camps coming in, and new business like Airbnbs and all these motels, they will always request for people to come and do content for them. So we thought this last time, having trained them into that element rather than just the big games or the wildlife itself would expand the way we offer the trainings, and even attract like a different gender, and hoping that after the trainings they can even use the profiles to pitch for jobs or a deal or something like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's nice that you guys are giving the
Mm,
chances to everyone to become a photographer or filmographer or storyteller in Tanzania. If you were
mhm.
yourself to choose a few, let's say, conservation work you've done, related, I don't know, to human wildlife conflict or research or any particular conservation work you've done recently, what would it be?
Well, so recently, from the guiding perspective, we communicate. We've been
Yeah,
communicating the importance of these projects and how either it be a local organization or foreign organizations that are getting involved, including the companies that we've worked with on what they do to these communities to bring it back and support the whole cycle of conservation, business, and tourism at large. Uh, but of, but on the filming side, on my side, it's just been me telling these kind of stories. And apart from the company that I have, because it all evolved from being in a job employment to now launching my own company. But of course, I've played part on lots of conservation stories. The recent one was something to do with, remember this again, was with Nomad. And of course, there are lots of programs all categorized on how they would support the communities along these national parks. And going down the list, I remember they had one program that would they would offer things like transport mechanism. And this was more for the women and the girls that were having to walk long distances from their homes to school. And because they're in such remote areas and chances of coming across wild animals as they move back and forth from school to home. So they offered them things like bicycles, and those bicycles kind of mitigate and make their long distance travel more shorter. Not only that, but we also have another one that was, you see, around these communities, because there's also an element of poverty
yeah,
of some sort. So like getting things like uh, good medical care and nice hospitals can become a challenge. And there's one program run around with this organization called Kafika House, and it's a plaster house. And what they do is they would want to access because the institute to get the better facilities, it's in the cities. But
yes,
then they want to treat people with like HIV. Like you've heard of this. People would have burns and the skin would, clump up together. Some people are born with like an open mouth, stuff like that. Some people are born with rickets, rickets when you have and this is all because of malnutrition, all these disabilities that people are born with, most of it is connected to malnutrition.
I
And these guys have come and they're able to treat children, especially the ones under 18, to be able to help them overcome those situations. And they go into major surgeries. So what this project was doing, what these guys were doing is they use a company, different companies, and with this case, reflecting back to Nomad is because they can access these areas because their safari vehicles go back and forth. So they'll take a team using facilities from a tourism company,
ah,
take it, and they would go into those areas, provide education, and then identify the people, identify
the problems, the
the
issues.
people, yeah, the people those conditions, and then they'll be transferred all the way to the major cities. And Kafika House would take over and do full treatments, all offered freely, and these kids recover. I mean, I think so far that been the last one. It's been quite heart touching to see people. And the worst part is most of these people in these communities would relate such situations with things like witchcraft.
Yeah,
You know, a kid born with clamp foot, they would directly relate it to some witchcraft elements or misconduct within the communities, but they have no idea that it's directly linked to the malnutritions or not having the right diets when the women are pregnant around those places. But now this organization has come, so it's trying to solve that puzzle. And so many other programs going on.
no, it's
Yeah.
that big companies like Nomad, are putting back into the community some of the money they get from tourism, because they've been here a long time. And I know Rupert is someone who's working very well on this side as well. And
Okay.
I know they're also doing conservation with community outreach regarding, let's say, elephant raiding crops or lions killing cattle.
Mhm.
Do you cover those kind of subjects sometimes as well?
Definitely, definitely. So we've had that one case with this, like this one was a medical situation, and then of course there's another one with education, but of course with the conflicts that you just mentioned. And one of their recent projects was along the boundaries of Tarangire, and Tarangire being well known with high populations of elephants. So during extreme dry seasons, these herds of elephants tend to go outside the national park and they will raid crops. And one approach they discovered that the communities were doing around that place was building their local watchtowers, where now they can see the elephants coming from a distance. And before they even get close, they would try and push them, especially during that farming season. And they would have askaris or some watchmen spending nights along the borders with their farms, trying to see them and identify them, and they just deter them by noises and things like that. But Nomad came in and they built proper towers, and they're quite high, and they offered not only the towers but also torches and stuff like that, where now they can even see them more clearly. They can deter them from a distance and using the torches to even flash them out. And that's an approach. And you see, this is not them trying to introduce something new because of what they assume would work, but getting the communities involved. What works for you guys? And since they've been using these watchtowers, so it was for them investing more on what they're already using as a tool
Yeah.
rather than bringing a new element from outside, which is brilliant.
Yeah, conservation, like you said, is linked with the communities. Like you cannot do conservation from an outside perspective and not
Mhm,
ask the locals on the ground what they think is working, what they've been doing maybe for a long time.
mhm,
Especially if you have, like you said, like a field of maize or something and vegetables. And then every night you have the elephants coming out of the park to eat your crops. And the government, I'm sure, is not doing much to compensate for this. So you have to find
mhm,
solutions, like you said, watchtowers with askaris all night. You can
mhm.
have, let's say, beehives. You can have chili fences. There's so many
Yes.
options that are possible. And I'm sure that, yeah, it's a good thing that Nomad is helping them improve those watchtowers and put money into these communities that are surrounding the parks because they are the
Mhm,
first ones in contact with wildlife when they get out of the park. Inside,
mhm,
it's another story. There's usually uh, guides and TANAPA is there, is working for to protect conservation, like, the wildlife, the behavior. Even you as a guide and a company owner, I guess
mhm.
you also brief everyone and you talk with the other guides about, an ethical way of guiding, right?
Yes, yes. And this is a very common thing. And for most of our colleagues, like we have small communities within our spaces. The industry itself offers lots of guiding opportunities. But to be honest, not everyone is seeing things the way everyone is seeing things. So within these little groups, either like you, a group of friends, these are things we try and discuss every day on how could we perfect the way we offer our experiences. And it's not just pointing out the big game or the wildlife, but also understanding the importance of them with the communities around at large. It's something that we do constantly, either be directly or indirectly.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
you have, let's say, a client request to go on safari in the high season, let's say July, August,
Mhm.
be any different way of driving around, let's say Serengeti or Tarangire, to
Mhm.
respect the animals, privacy and the well-being of nature when there's a lot of cars? Are there
Mhm.
solutions, I think?
Well, with that said, I would say the best solution, which we always think would help, is, and I think this touches almost in the broader part of the industry itself, is infrastructures. Infrastructures, because unfortunately, as much as the industry is allowing local business to evolve and offering lots of job opportunities, and this being specific into the guiding. So the companies, we're getting more and more companies, and the bigger companies are also expanding more and more, and also they are having camps across these national parks. And within one camp, they would have at least maybe 5 to 6 vehicles. So as you mentioned, there's pressure within that space, but then you see everyone is he's holding his his own itinerary, like they have something to deliver.
Yeah.
And at that point, guests also come with expectations depending on what the agents or the sales team have promised them. Like you go in this place, you're going to see this, you go in that place, you're going to see that. But you see, the pressure comes, especially with the fascinating big games, you name them, you know them, like the lions, elephants, and rhinos and stuff like that. So you see, especially with the big cats, whenever and people never get tired watching these animals. You can go on a safari, an 8-day safari, and in every national park, whenever you hear there's a lion sighting somewhere, you still want to go there. You still want to go there. So you see, if everyone has that mindset, the consequence is now the concentration of vehicles come into those spaces. But then, if people had so again, so with the element of infrastructure, which also allows these drivers to diversify and explore in the park, it happens that unfortunately they have to use the same tracks, the same
Yeah.
roads, and all of them have to concentrate on those roads. So that's one thing. It comes with advantage, but also comes with a disadvantage. But then another thing is also the knowledge, to having the knowledge of being able to identify and interpret your wildlife, not just with the beacons, but even beyond that. So assuming I have a trip, I have to go, even it could be any, like either be just normal guiding or photographic guiding. Then I know like I'm going to visit Tarangire, and then there's a selling point for Tarangire, and then you go to Manyara, let's say, and then there's a selling point at Manyara, and then I go to Serengeti. There's also a selling point for the Serengeti. So my suggestion in such situations is also diversifying the guide's knowledge and being able to tell stories beyond the most appealing wildlife. So we go to Serengeti. I know if I have a couple days in Serengeti, I'm eventually going to see a land there. So why don't I go to Serengeti and maybe focus on something different? Either focus on the big baobabs, a little bit of bird watching. And this also comes, regardless the interest of the guests, also comes with how you introduce the areas and also how you anticipate or you kind of brief your guests on expectations. So
Yeah.
if they have, which most companies are trying to also offer this kind of trainings, but it also has to instill into guys' mind on why should we do that. And when you go into this place, rather than oh, there's a lion sighting somewhere, rather than and then there's already 30 vehicles there. So instead of you going there, then you choose to what, let's just focus on these other small elements and uh, undiscussed elements, which they're still part of this ecosystem
Of
in
course.
a beautiful way that they also get connected, but also promising them what will be next if, or what will be the chances of seeing such a big cat if we not happen to see it here. This is how you manage them. And for most of these guests, they will always appreciate as long as, even if they come with the checklist and they're so excited as a first sighting,
Yeah.
just the way you manage that will also help and might diversify you not having to concentrate on same spots. Mhm.
Clearly. No, no, clearly, like you said, many people come with expectations. They have the big five, they have all that they want to see. But I'm sure that what you guys do is like you said, you explain the wildlife, you explain why you should or why you should not go to this place. And more importantly, I think the clients, they need to be aware of all the communities that really live around the park and the conservation aspect of it, because many people, they come back from Africa and they have this image.
Mhm.
We saw lions and elephants and beautiful landscapes, but so many of
Mhm.
them, they have no idea of what's going on behind the scenes. What we just mentioned
Mhm.
before, the human wildlife conflict, the the
Yes.
the problems with fences, with
Mhm.
poaching, snares. There's not many clients that are aware of this. And one way
Yeah.
to change this is for every client that go on safari to be aware
Mhm.
through their guide of what's going on
Mhm.
around the parks. Because a safari is not
Mhm.
only animals, it's also the people around the parks and the people in the parks who work there. So
Mhm.
it's what you guys are doing is amazing.
Which Matt, I agree with you, and I'm glad that you've also pointed that out, as in not only the wildlife, also the communities around it. And as you're driving across and having to move from one national park to the other national park, I mean, Tanzania is quite blessed, and in terms of the diversification of of what it can offer within the industry itself. And when we shift the narratives, as you said, which is brilliant, not only into the wildlife, but also realizing the people, the culture, the everyday life of people in the modern Tanzania of today. Those could also, be part of the packages. And when we come, it's not just going to these national parks, but we kind of have a mix and blend into those elements as well, which most of the companies are trying to do that. But with my opinion, I think it's not done enough. Of course, it comes with pressure behind it, but and those kind of requests and what people are expecting when they do a safari. But I think it also comes with how we change the narratives when we're
Exactly.
selling this. So it's like what you're saying. You're saying that they have to tell a broader story
Mm.
rather than we just focus on one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you go to Tarangire, the clients, they should be aware that around the park there are WMAs everywhere with people
Hmm.
living there and the wildlife moving from Manyara to Tarangire, Tarangire to South, Tarangire to Ngorongoro, and all these
Yes.
places, they're so different from the national park. They're not managed by TANAPA. There's not so many tourists. There are villages there. There are wildlife corridors. There are elephants moving
Hmm.
to and from. And
Yes.
clients, like you said, the narrative, the whole image of the trip is changing
Hmm.
slowly, with the agents and the guides and the local
Hmm.
communities doing, like you said, doing community outreach, explaining to the locals what they
Hmm.
could
Hmm.
maybe do better, but also explaining to the guests what's happening
Hmm.
and how they could help themselves.
Yes, yes, which is brilliant. And you see, it's so unfortunate that uh, in Tanzania, most of the tourism companies are not allowed to engage directly into conservation programs. You know, like maybe owning an NGO that is directly involved
Yeah.
into making a difference. Instead, a particular NGO should be the one doing that, and then you, as a tourism company, could come behind it and support that.
Yeah.
And well, some of the companies are trying to also tell a story beyond the wildlife, but also getting them involved in what they do. But they also try and take them and getting them to have direct comms with these organizations. And they could come or they could meet somewhere along their safaris and they'll do proper presentations on how they're involved and what they do. And of course, there's been some requests of even some of them wanting to directly get involved into a particular program, either it be a snare program or anti-poaching, whatever, it could be anything. But it's so unfortunate, like we are not in a position yet to allow that. Instead, for guests who would come in and really wanting to do that, they have to go directly to that NGO and try and organize the practice rather than coming from a safari element. But yeah, but they still find ways to work together and find ways to make it work. So on the other side, for people who are leading such safaris, there's also a way that they could take those opportunities and also talk about what's happening behind the scene of these conservation efforts, rather than just focusing on the wildlife itself.
Yeah, and because, briefly before we have to finish this, but like you said, it's not that easy to mix conservation and tourism. Um,
Mm-hmm.
say if your clients are sleeping in Ngorongoro or Karatu, they can have a visit from Kope Lion and someone can explain
Mm-hmm.
to them the work they're doing in Ngorongoro, giving
Mm-hmm.
scouts in the bush looking out for lions and preventing um, lion predating on cattle, for example. And
Yes,
this is something clients, they always do araka araka, like speedy, speedy itineraries.
you're
But they
you're
should keep
right.
in mind that having,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, half a day or a day in their trip to learn more about the work being done regarding conservation in Tanzania is as important as bringing back a picture of a lion,
Mm-hmm.
because those lions, they are predators, they are carnivores, they eat impalas, but they also eat goats and cows. So they need to know why the Maasai are defending themselves and how they are changing the way they do it, now because there used to be a lot of lion killings in the past. It's slowly changing because of
Mm-hmm.
NGOs like Kope Lion and others who are helping communities better protect themselves with, let's say, stronger bomas or dogs
Mm-hmm.
or watchmen or scouts equipped with, radios in the bush. It's not every day
Mm-hmm.
you see a lion with a GPS collar and a young Maasai on the radio calling his father and
Mm-hmm.
saying, Dad, Dad, bring back the cows, the lions are coming. Yeah, but this is helping a lot, and the clients, they need to know about this. What do you think?
You're right. I think it's true, Matt. I mean, I think it's what you're saying is it's like we want to lead with authentic storytelling in a way that it's almost like you're introducing another package, which from listening to you, I'd say like a conservation safari. Like having if we would, and this would be nice if some of these investors, either be foreign or local, to try and get involved, as in having some of these packages where it's not just taking you to these destinations and having to spend time in fancy accommodations, but rather than, you come here, you get directly involved into these kind of conservation projects. And while most of them are quite spread apart from their areas of operations, and then there could be ways you could organize and you come here, you do something with the elephant, spend a couple of days there, see how it really works, and then you move to, as you said, Ngorongoro, spend time with the copy lions, couple of days there, see what they do, how they do it, get to experience the challenges, and that becomes more authentic. You kind of feel it and you realize and understand the need of doing it. And this also goes to most of these of experienced travelers, and especially now with the modern tourism, people want to have a purpose of why they're traveling. I think what you're saying, Matt, is brilliant. It's something I would say some of these companies should try and look into, including the governments themselves. Yeah, so yeah, Matt, I think it was brilliant. It was wonderful having a chat with you today. I think you're doing an amazing job with the podcast. And one thing I love about it is you're bringing different thoughts from different people across the world to share their views and perspectives on the conservation efforts around their specific regions. And now with the presence of media and people looking for more sources of information, I think it's wonderful, and I'm really appreciating having to be part of this match.
Thank you. No, it's the whole
Mm,
point of the podcast is to bring a positive and hopeful message regarding Africa at large, conservation, wildlife, communities, science, tourism, and people like yourself who are embedded into the media and tourism industry at the same time. You have a very good eye when it comes to conservation, to the people around
mm,
the parks, to the amazing jobs that is done already, but can be done even better if everyone takes their part and understands that it's not only the job for a few people. Conservation is
mhm.
has to be done by everyone. That's the only way
It's a
it's going
collect.
to work. If you
Mhm,
if you don't go outside and talk to communities, they'll keep putting snares for bushmeat, and if you don't
mhm,
get with the guides, they'll keep on, how do you say, crowding the wildlife and putting 100 cars by the river. And really,
mhm,
there's no point doing this because client in the long run, they're going to
mhm.
get tired of it, of so many people, and we don't want this to happen. We want people to still come and discover the beauties of Africa. And the only way to
Yes.
do this is to respect the wildlife, to respect the communities,
Mhm,
and to educate
mhm,
everyone, from kids to grandfathers, tourists to Masai, Adzabe. Everyone needs to be aware of what can be done for a better future for Africa, I think.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a very
So
interesting conversation.
great, great, wonderful, Matt.
But thank you very much, Dulan, for this talk, and you'll have a very good day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.